They say it only takes one moment to change your entire life. But I never believed that. Not until that afternoon when my old pickup truck gave up on me right on the edge of a neighborhood. I'd only ever seen in movies and magazines. The sun was scorching, baking the cracked pavement beneath my boots as I popped the hood and looked helplessly inside. My hands were filthy, stained black with grease and grime from years of working double shifts to keep my family afloat. I could feel sweat pooling beneath my worn-out cap, and the day's exhaustion weighed heavy on my shoulders. That neighborhood, it was a world away. Massive houses crowned with turrets and sprawling gardens where summer lilies bloomed. The sort of place where lawn sprinklers painted rainbows in the air and every window glimmered like glass treasures. It was a glittering scene that looked nothing like my life. Just as I was about to slam the hood shut in frustration, a smooth, black car glided to a stop beside me. The window rolled down smoothly, and a voice soft, but clear-cut through the hot air. "Do you need some help?" I blinked up, barely believing what I was hearing. The woman behind the wheel had hair as shiny as silk and eyes that seemed to hold a whole ocean of stories. Her clothes were sharp and white, unblemished by work or worry. She wasn't just passing through. She stopped. For me, I looked down at my hands, caked in grease and dirt, feeling suddenly very exposed. Who was she to offer help to a guy like me? The mechanic's son who worked to keep engines breathing, but never imagined crossing paths with someone like her. She climbed out of the car gracefully, and the scent of her perfume mixed with the smell of motor oil in a strange, dizzying way. "I don't know much about trucks," she said with a smile, "but I'm happy to watch and learn if you want the company." I hesitated, then nodded, because honestly, I was tired of being alone with my struggles. We worked on the truck together. She watched attentively as I checked the belts, the battery, and the spark plugs, a language she'd never needed to learn before. But instead of stepping back, she asked questions. Curious questions that warmed the thick, defensive armor I'd always worn around myself. I told her stories of late nights fixing cars in a small garage behind my house, of the weight of bills I couldn't pay, and the dreams I sometimes let myself have when sleep came. She told me about her life, a world filled with charity balls she found empty, a family that saw her more as an asset than a person, and the endless loneliness behind golden gates. It was wild how two people from such different worlds could find common ground in whispered confessions. By a broken-down pickup, she handed me a bottle of water when I realized I'd been working too long without a sip. I wiped my hands on a rag and tried to hide my embarrassment, but she just laughed, soft, genuinely fanned. For a moment, the gulf between us didn't seem so wide. "Before she left," she said, "you remind me that there's more to life than money and reputation. That day wasn't just about fixing a truck. It was about discovering a connection that crossed the invisible line society loves to draw. And it was only the beginning. In the days after that first encounter, I found myself looking for her face on every street corner, every memory in the cracked sidewalks and humming engines of my neighborhood. She was a puzzle piece I didn't know was missing. She was the billionaire's daughter who had stepped out of her world without hesitation. She wasn't like the others. Her eyes held a depth that spoke of loneliness, hidden behind the chandeliers and silk gowns. She told me stories about the endless expectations she carried, how every party she attended was more of a performance than a celebration, how even the brightest smiles could be masks, hiding desperation for something real. Who saw the girl beneath the fortune? Her friends hadn't seen her. They just saw what she had. Her money, her family name, her place in high society's endless dance. But that girl, the real one, was desperate for truth. She didn't want to be just the billionaire's daughter. She wanted to be seen. I shared my own story in return. Nights I spent fighting demons of poverty and pride. Those evenings when my stomach rumbled louder than any music. The ache of losing someone I loved because I couldn't protect them with money I didn't have. Our stories might have been penned in different ink, but they rhymed in raw, aching ways. Every conversation peeled back another layer. She started visiting the garage quietly, without announcing herself, but with a presence that felt like home. I learned to embrace her paradox. Elegance and vulnerability, strength and fear. And she learned to cherish the beauty in simplicity and honest struggle. We laughed over greasy sandwiches, argued about dreams, and found hope in each other's truths. People might have said we were worlds apart, but at that time, we were closer than ever. The moments that followed our growing closeness weren't easy. The world outside our bubble had its own ideas and voices, louder than the ones in our hearts. People whispered, voices full of doubt and disbelief. Friends warned her, be careful, someone like you doesn't belong with someone like him. My neighbors shook their heads, murmuring, how could a kid like him ever be enough for a billionaire's daughter? The stares were sharper than knives. The questions unspoken but clear. What game were we playing? Was Disrael, or a momentary, foolish rebellion? Her father, a man who carried the weight of legacy and pride, watched with cold fury. He didn't understand how his daughter could find something meaningful outside the gilded cage he built for her. To him, it was a disgrace, a risk to their family's reputation. And yet, in the face of judgment, our bond only deepened. We learned quickly that love wasn't enough to quiet the voices, but it was enough to teach us resilience. I remember one bitterly cold night, standing beneath flickering streetlights, our breath hanging in sharp white clouds. She was shaking, not from cold, but from anger and fear. She told me she was tired of being told who she should be, of the pressure to fit into a mold that crushed her spirit. I told her about nights I stayed awake worrying if the roof over my head would hold. It was a raw, unfiltered moment. No riches, no status. Just two souls stripped bare. We couldn't promise the world to each other, but we promised to fight for the truth in us. The challenges ahead weren't illusions. They were very real, but the strength we found in each other was stronger than the fears and doubts. The tense whispers and harsh judgments outside our bubble tried to strain us, but inside, something unbreakable was growing. She began showing me pieces of her world, the glamorous parties, the charity galas shimmering in crystal chandeliers, the carefully rehearsed smiles behind the cameras. But behind that glitter was a truth most would never see. Long nights spent staring out at empty balconies, the hollow silence of mansions too big to feel like home, and family dinners where everyone was a stranger. I showed her my world, the clatter of tools, the smell of hot grease and rubber, the laughter shared over cheap coffee and worn benches. She saw the beauty in things I never thought anyone outside my small town could appreciate. Together, we discovered how much richer life could be when shared, whether in penthouses or garages. It wasn't just the contrast of our worlds that made us find meaning in each other. It was the understanding that beneath the surface, we were both searching for the same thing. Belonging. Our moments together were more than memories. They were lessons in humility, courage, and hope. Every shared secret, every quiet smile, every skeptical glance from the world outside made our bond stronger. And no matter where life took us, that surprising connection stayed rooted deep inside us, quietly reminding us that human hearts beat the same, regardless of the worlds they live in. Years have passed since that unexpected first meeting by the broken truck. Life didn't magically turn into a fairy tale. Eat, never dose. But that day taught me something that no amount of money or status ever could. It taught me that true connection is rooted in seeing the person beneath the surface, beneath wealth, beneath hardship, beneath fear and pride. She showed me that loneliness can live behind opulence, that sometimes the richest among us carry the heaviest burdens. I learned that strength isn't about money. It's about vulnerability, the courage to lay your soul bare, to risk judgment, and still be willing to trust. Our worlds remained different, but distance didn't matter. The surprising connection we shared grew into a quiet force, teaching us both how to be human in a world that often forgets. And maybe, just maybe, it taught us how love isn't about grand gestures or perfect circumstances. It's about honesty, respect, and being seen for exactly who you are. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this story, it is this. Life's most profound moments are often the ones we never see coming. Sometimes, destiny places strangers side by side not to rewrite their entire story in an instant, but to remind them of what really matters. Thank you for listening to this journey with me. If this story touched you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more stories that remind us of the power of connection. And I'd love to know, where are you watching from? Drop a comment, and let's keep this conversation going. Until next time, keep your hearts open, because the most surprising connections often happen when you least expect them.